Hey, this is Wave Racer, and I'm here to talk about my new album, To Stop From Falling Off the Earth. And today I'm going to talk about every track on the album. Track 1, All That I Can Do.
Maybe I think too much, 'cause lately I'm losing touch.
I knew when I made it was going to be the album's opener because of the energy level. There was an explosive energy to the production that I was like, this has opening track energy. Lyrically and conceptually, it's a song about doing the best that you can in the circumstances that you have, despite the fact that we're often probably made to feel like what we're doing is not good enough. And there's this like weird psychological thing that I think a lot of people have where like they feel like they have to be focused on being right, doing the right thing, behaving the right way, thinking and feeling the right way, when that's not really productive if you're trying to be the best person you can be, because you have to sort of look inward a bit more than that. It's a song about doing all that you can do. You're trying your best, but at the end of the day, you can only do your best, and nobody's perfect. And I think I had a bit of a frustration in my life about feeling like I was trying my best and people weren't necessarily recognizing that. So the song is essentially about trying to work out how to be when the concept of being and being the best and being correct is constantly in question. There's also in the lyrics like a reference to Icarus mythology, like flying too close to the sun, and like a reference to like hubris. There's a tendency for people to get really cocky about they thinking like that they have it all worked out. I was feeling very, very confident and cocky about myself to the point where I was not allowing myself to progress or change because I thought anything else is going to be different or worse, you know? There's consequences to that, I suppose. Don't fly too close to the sun because you'll burn your wings and you'll die. Track 2, Auto, it was the first song that people heard that is from the album. It was released as a single, and it is probably one of my proudest pieces to date. It was kind of like an introduction to a new chapter of my creative life. Conceptually, the song is about sort of the machine-like efficiency that is often expected of people. It sort of goes unnoticed how hard people are already trying to meet those standards, and I found myself becoming very frustrated with trying to meet those levels of, you know, approval standards that were impossibly high to meet despite my best efforts. It's a rumination about all the things that I'm telling myself I have to be in order to succeed. I like to think that the end of the song is an instrumental representation of me breaking out and rejecting that. I'm telling myself that I need to do this and I need to have this sort of robotic efficiency like a machine, but I am only human. I can only do my best, and at the end of the day, you have to do what's best for you. Don't stick to a strict regime that's going to rule your life or instruct your behaviors and things like that, and don't let other people dictate those behaviors. Do your own thing, make your own choices, exercise your own free will, and I feel like that's what the song's about.
Take a minute and tell me the news. Where did you go? What did you do? Did you make a mistake on the internet?
Track 3 is Tell Me the News, which is basically my attempt at a love song. It's my first attempt at a love song, but it is also a little bit more than that. It's about the type of relationship that is mutually beneficial and reciprocal on a psychological level. Two people who are coming together and becoming greater than the sum of their parts. You know, the chorus in that song, you're hearing one side of a dialogue between two people. You're hearing someone who's providing a sense of reassurance, asking questions, problem solving, trying to comfort the other person in the best way that they can. And that is just, you know, to represent, or basically just to show what it can be like to help someone and to then get that help back if you need it. So it's ultimately a pretty happy song. It's a very personal song. It is obviously drawing from my own experiences with like my relationship, and you can grow together and become better than you are individually or without them. It's kind of an ode to openness and honesty and allowing yourself to have others help you and allow that to be reciprocal.
You won't ever know how much everything was like if you give yourself up. Learn how to look up to yourself.
Track 4, Look Up to Yourself. It's definitely the most fun pop song on the album. It's basically just a song about being kind to yourself, showing yourself the respect that you deserve. It's corny, but that's kind of the point. I think everyone sometimes falls into the trap of blaming themselves or not showing themselves enough respect. So in my experience, I found myself retrospectively realizing that I was becoming my own worst enemy. I was stopping myself from being the person I wanted to be because I wasn't showing myself that respect. I wanted this song to sort of be that injection of positivity and that reminder to people that that is something that you need to sometimes do. Track 5, What Are We Waiting For? That is the only instrumental track on the album, funnily enough. I think I'm sort of known for my instrumental electronic music prior to this release, not as a deliberate choice, but as a natural side effect of producing this album. This is the only instrumental piece in that vein that sort of made its way onto the track list. I set myself a creative restriction by saying I wanted to create a piece of music out of nothing, essentially. So I started with basically no source material. I created like a generative sound using a synthesizer that was very messy, not very musical, using that very sort of unmusical texture and forcing myself to create a piece that had beauty and musicality to it. So I like to sort of set those creative exercises for myself because they encourage creativity. And in this case, this is an example of one of those exercises that actually resulted in a really sort of beautiful piece of music that I'm proud of. The title, What Are We Waiting For, is basically just a reference to like, why are you stalling? What are you like waiting for? What's your excuse? Why are you not creating? Why are you not proceeding with your life? And I guess this song is like proof of that concept because I did basically create a really cool piece of music that I'm proud of out of essentially nothing. It's more about the process that you put into it rather than the resources that you have.
'Cause you cut me open, tore me up and you left me broken. Yeah, you kicked me out, took me down 6 feet underground.
Track 6, Left Behind. It's probably one of the most somber songs, I suppose, on the album's track list. It basically describes the grief of a pretty brutal relationship breakdown and what the impacts of that were on myself. But it is also a bit of like a teaching moment. It's like the kind of relationship breakdown that displaces someone's entire life and entire sense of being or sense of self. It can have a real impact on your sense of identity, I think. So, you know, lyrically, the song is obviously about a shattered soul that's trying to pick up the pieces and find itself again and move on and rebuild itself. And the song is about the pain of that and the difficulty of that, and it's about a lack of ability maybe to move on from that, accompanied by a ripping guitar solo, of course. Naturally.
You're gonna be the dreaded 27 anyway. Ooh, baby, I'm not trying to be funny, but you give me a run for my money.
Track 7, Money. I became interested in writing a song about the 27 Club. The 27 Club refers to a string or a pattern of high-profile people, celebrities, rock stars, artists, entrepreneurs and stuff who have all tragically lost their life at the age of 27. You know, like Kurt Cobain, Amy Winehouse, Jim Morrison, the list goes on. I became interested not only in like that pop cultural phenomenon, but also something generated in my mind about like, wouldn't it be funny if I made a song about myself joining the 27 Club, but then people not really noticing or caring because like I'd already sort of faded into obscurity by that point. So it's kind of a dark song. Like, it's like, yeah, there was a time in my life where I thought I really didn't have any future. And I was like, the song basically became about less about the actual 27 Club and death and all that, but more about like spending all my money and using up all my good fortune before my life inevitably just crumbles into dust. Like before everything that I value and all the success that I've enjoyed inevitably fades away. And I sort of wrapped it up with a bow of like disguising it as a cheeky romance song about like spending money on someone and all that. But really the other person in the song is just a companion to my own self-destruction. Track 8, Better Than This. the soft moment on the album. It's like the only really soft moment. It's kind of a bit of a break from, you know, heavy drums and like heavy guitars and stuff. I like to think that the instrumentation in that song is feels very settled and comforted and like contented. Conceptually, the song is basically a conversation or a dialogue about someone who's clearly having some sort of psychological turmoil or they're not doing great in their lives. Like they're not feeling great and it's very obvious. And you're hearing it from the point of view of an observer looking at that person. Obviously, the song is about myself, so it's kind of like I split myself in two. I was the one being observed and also the observer in the song. In that sense, it was kind of a bit of a therapeutic exercise to write that song, to be like looking at why I am acting the way I am and feeling the way I am, and then being like, oh, that's really, like, that's because of this reason. Because I was sort of pulling myself out and looking inside as an outsider or as an external observer. It's easy when you're looking at someone else who's not yourself, who's struggling. You can say, they're super depressed, or like they think they're useless and terrible, but really they just need a bit of reassurance and some time to like figure out their life, or like, they'll be fine. But they don't think that. They think they're stuck in this horrible sort of dark place that they'll never escape from. So the song is about both sides of that.
I'm still waking up at 3 a.m. 'cause I've been dreaming about you again.
Track 9, Dreaming. I think that song is basically just about longing after someone who's no longer in your life, but obviously you don't want to be doing that. You are reluctantly or accidentally thinking about this person despite all your efforts to try and forget about them. A lot of times we might pretend that it's very easy to move on from a situation or relationship or some person in your life who's no longer in your life. We lie to ourselves and we say, I'm going to be fine, I'll move on, it's like not a problem. But really it's not that easy. And so, at a vulnerable time, they'll come back to haunt you, like in your mind, or, you'll be ruminating about them or something, and they'll just pop into your head and you'll be like, I don't know why you're popping into my head, why are you in my head? Like, I don't want you in my head. The song is also about like giving into that feeling. So when something like that pops into your head and you're not wanting it to be there, you just have to give into it and accept it. So, if someone's popping into your head in your dreams, or nightmares for that matter, you have to sort of reckon with this person's absence from your life in a healthy way. And until you do that, they're going to keep popping into your head and you're going to keep having to just surrender to it. I think it's about not allowing that person or the thought of that person to haunt you anymore.
Cause just a thought of you is enough for me. Yeah, just a thought is all I want, all I need.
10, Just a Thought. That's another song about the idea of someone existing in your mind, but this is a much more positive spin on it. Even if someone's not physically in your presence, the thought of their existence in your life, or the thought of their presence in your life, is enough to keep you happy. They don't have to necessarily be there by your side, because you have the confidence that they are there for you and that they are looking out for you and they care enough about you to stay in your life. So that song is about the thought of that person and it being a comforting and reassuring thought in your life. And it's actually, I wrote the chorus to that song like 4 years ago at least. So it's an idea that's been in my head for quite some time. It's a more upbeat, electronic, vibey jam song that people probably will feel is like a little bit reminiscent of the style of music I was making a few years ago. And it is kind of a demo from that time. So that's cool that a song that I'd been working on, 4 years ago is making its way into my more up-to-date production standards and stuff.
Are you serious? I don't believe this.
Track 11, Full Circle, the final track on the album. And I knew when I wrote the song that it was going to be the final track because it had this sort of finality to the production and the instrumentation. Like I knew when I made it, I was like, this has to be the last song on the album. It has to close the album out. And I think it works perfectly for that. It's meant to represent a bit of a phoenix rising moment. Like you have finally gotten to the point where you are self-aware and self-confident enough to rise above the things that have caused you pain and confusion, like a lot of the subject matter from the previous tracks on the album. And it's like also about the idea of blind faith in something that you're just going along with without questioning it. I think the idea of faith in sort of some idea or some community or some person or some friendship circle or something is like, if it's blind faith and you're not questioning and scrutinizing why you're going along with that, it's very arbitrary and it's very abstract. So I think there's a challenge to be made in questioning your positioning in your communities and like asking the question, like, do I really align myself with the values of these people? Are my friends like wankers? Like, why am I, like, am I really aligning myself with the kind of person that I want to be? And like, that's a difficult thing to ask yourself, I think. Actually confront yourself with that question. Be like, is this right for me? A lot of people just avoid that question at all costs. But this song is about not avoiding that question. The song is about using the answers to that in a productive way, allowing yourself to rise and grow and reposition yourself with that newfound knowledge. Maybe you found that you are on the right track, or maybe you found that you need to adjust yourself in some way. And then instrumentally, the song sort of rises into this beautiful outro that I'm really proud of. It sort of sonically feels like all the instrumentation on the album is sort of coming together and culminating in this sort of settled feeling of just like contentedness and certainty in its own existence. And so that's sort of meant to be a bit of a sonic metaphor for what the song is trying to convey. And I think it kind of works really well. So that's that song, yeah.
And I don't wanna play anymore. I don't wanna play anymore.